What's up, everybody? Supreme Decisions here, and today I want to talk to you about the reason for police officer can ask someone out of their vehicle. Now, I'm going to give you the most obvious one and the most stated. It's Pennsylvania v. Mimms. However, there's a secondary case that applies to passengers, but now it goes under the same guidelines. Police can order drivers to exit their vehicles during a lawful traffic stop if, remember the biggest words in law, if and or, if they have a reasonable suspicion of a safety threat. Now, the reason why I throw that in there is they must be able to articulate the reason they believe there was a threat to their safety at the time they asked you to get out of the car during that stop. Now, Maryland v. Wilson goes and applies to the passenger. Since the passenger is already seized, they too, during the stop, can be asked to leave the car. But you do not have to be subjected to a pat down, and nor does the passenger have to identify unless. I'll get into that later, but again, you don't have to do that. You are not obligated as a passenger. Now, even on a pat down, once you exit the vehicle, the officer must be able to point to an area in which they believe a weapon is being held, which could cause harm to their safety. If not, you can ask during cross-examination or during the trial, what made you suspicious that I am a threat to your safety? Which is the reason they can ask you out of a vehicle during a lawful traffic stops. And even in the context of this, I want you to understand, as a passenger, Pennsylvania v. Mimms does not address that and does not apply to passengers. Maryland v. Wilson applies to passengers in regards to Pennsylvania v. Mimms because they too must have an ongoing threat to the police officer's safety. But here's the guidelines for you to not have to worry about this once this happens. How do you remain safe and your ability to combat this? Remain silent and properly invoke. Due to the advice of counsel and the Fifth Amendment, I choose not to answer this or any further questions. Refuse to consent to a vehicle search because they need probable cause and a smell is not one. Request your attorney during questioning. Say, I'd like to have counsel with me if you're going to continue questioning me. And then request the officer's name and badge number and also a scene or incident report. These are things that must be logged, and these are also things that you can use to start weaponizing and preparing your defense. So keep in mind, Pennsylvania v. Mimms applies to the driver. And understand, you can be asked to get out of the conveyance as long as the officer has a reasonable suspicion there's a safety threat. But they must be able to articulate it. Passengers already seized, Maryland v. Wilson, and now you must also pose a threat to the officer before they can ask you to exit the vehicle. So remember that these are grounds, and you do not have to consent to searches, and you don't have to consent to identification. Those are other aspects of this. So remember, if you've been subjected to this, you have a means of fighting back.